You guys hear me okay? Yeah? Great. Welcome. Thank you for coming. This should be fun. So my name is Keith Neustadt. We're going to be talking about Agile principles and practices as we've applied them to our first robotics team. Before I get started, I just wanted to put this up here. If you guys don't want to take notes, if you don't want to take pictures, just take a snap of this one. I posted some, yeah, that's the right link. Posted some material up on the web. So a few of the key points that I'm going to be talking about today are up there along with links so that you can read more and in more detail about how to apply some of these concepts. That's also my email. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to ask any questions or if you just want to talk, share experiences. Okay? Everybody got it? I'll put that link up later on in a later slide too in case you missed it, or for anybody who's coming in late. So I want to introduce ourselves. The team, we are the Day Dragons. We're an FLL team from Newton, Massachusetts in the US. It's just outside of Boston. This is our third year in competition, but it's our first year using Agile. So we've got some pretty interesting views of what it's like both with and without. As for me, I'm Keith Neustadt. I'm a software architect, and I use these things at work all the time. And it's been just really fun to bring it into the team. There have been times when I've wished that the folks at work dealt with these things better than the kids do. The kids, it's almost like they're naturals with this stuff, so I recommend it. All right, so before I get started, I want to ask you a question. So actually, before I get started, who here knows what Agile is? Do you guys have some experience? Yeah? Is it from work? How many people from work? And how many people have been using it in their teams? All right, awesome. So we'll ask you guys some questions too. All right, so the other question I wanted to ask you guys is, how long do you think it would take you to change a tire? What do you think? An hour. Anybody else? 20 minutes, 15 minutes? All right. 60 minutes? All right, the fastest I heard was 15 minutes, all right? So if you had to do two, it would take maybe 30-ish, maybe a little less. All right, so what would you say if I told you that in the first F1 race ever in 1950, they were able to change two tires in the middle of the race in a pit stop in about a minute? It's pretty good, right? So what I want to do is I want to show you a video of them doing that, and I want you to watch and pick out things of what you think they're doing well and things that they could be doing better, all right? And talk among yourselves. This is not a formal presentation. Talk among yourselves or shout stuff out, whatever you'd like to do, and we'll all watch together. All right. So, oh, geez. Gonna have to skip ahead a little bit. So, not bad for 1950. You think that they do better now? Yeah, probably a little bit better. How fast do you think they do it now? How? 10 seconds, 2 seconds? Less than 2 seconds? We got somebody who knows. All right, so let's watch and compare. Let me see if I can find the right, brought up the wrong video, so I'm gonna have to go look for it. This is the one, I think. There we go. Did you catch it? How'd they do it? Do you want to see it again? Let's see if I can. All right, watch close. Bigger hammer. They're doing 4 tires, by the way, so not just 2. Everybody had a specific job, okay? Only did one thing, specialized. Everything was prepped. Yep, they had more people. That's true. So more people makes it go faster, right? Mm. Yeah. Have you guys had that experience where more people makes it go slower? Yeah. Yeah. What else? What else did you guys see? Right back here. Yeah, so preparation, right? A lot of preparation. Physical preparation, yeah, absolutely. Anything else you guys saw? All right, well, I will tell you some of the stuff that I saw. So the first thing I thought of when I saw this video was that somebody obviously made a decision to do this, right? You don't accidentally go from 60 seconds to under 2 by accident, right? That doesn't just happen. So somebody must have said, this is important. So as it turns out, these races take hours, but they can be lost in seconds. So the last race, F1 race of last year in Abu Dhabi, was won by under 4 seconds, right? Look at how close they are. So this was won by the pit crew, arguably, right? So this is important. Somebody said, this is something we're going to focus on. Next, this is something that you guys mentioned, right? You've got one guy who's responsible for taking off the tire, for picking it up, for moving it, for putting it down, for picking up another tire. Nobody's helping him, nobody's ready, right? So there's not a lot of good teamwork going on here. On the other hand, with the modern version, you've got the specialization where you've got 3 people and they're all ready with a specific job. And as we said, 3 people, that makes it faster. 6 people probably makes it slower, right? So what do you do with all those other people? You have to deploy them smartly, right? So what they did was they said, here's the right size team to take off a tire. Now I'm going to find parallel jobs for everybody else to do, right? So that they can work independently. There's no dependencies between these teams. Something else I want to ask you, who's the boss? Who's organizing this whole process? Can you see him? Guy who's? Anybody else? All right, I'm sorry, it's a trick question. Nobody's in charge. The team is in charge, right? The team is in charge. If there was somebody telling everybody what to do, how long would this take? You couldn't do this in under 2 seconds if somebody was telling people what to do, right? So the team is in charge. There is no leader because the team is prepared and the team is, everybody's doing their job. You pointed out, right? Everybody's in place. Look at this guy with the jack. Nothing can happen. He's a dependency, right? And nothing can happen until he shows up. He's nowhere near the car when the car gets there. So he's running over. On the other hand, you take a look at this. In the modern one, he's standing right there. The car drives over the jack, right? So he's ready to go. They've minimized that dependency as much as possible. The other thing I want to point out is how fast is this car coming in? coming in at 50 miles an hour inside the pit stop. That's when he's braking. So do you think that this guy and the driver, do you think that they're friends? I would say that they love each other. They are like best friends. So that team dynamic, it's the sort of thing that we kind of overlook, but that relationship is critical because there's no way that guy's standing in front of that car at 50 miles an hour without it. I heard the hammer, right, as a tool to remove a tire. So they upgraded that, right? So now it's a power pneumatic tool. It's hard to see here. So the bolts that we have, the nuts that we have on our cars, they've got 5 sides or 6 sides or something like that. It's hard to see here, but there are dozens of little grooves, right? So there's not just 5 or 6 positions that you can put this wrench on. No matter how you put the wrench on, it's going to slide right over it. So do you think that they took that hammer and said, we need something better and designed this? No. What'd they do? They went through 70 years, right, of iterations, right? So, it's important to say that, even though they started with the wrong tool, it doesn't mean that you can jump to the right tool. You've got to improve it, and then improve it, and improve it, and eventually you get to this. Another thing that I noticed about this, what are those numbers on the ground? Any idea? See where the what lines up? Where the car lines up. So, but for what purpose? Is it so yeah. So, but can the driver see that? So what's it for? Yeah, well, it's for the crews to know where the car is supposed to stop, right? And the driver's supposed to stop it there, but the driver's not using that to stop it in the race. The driver can't see that. They take pictures from above so that after the race, the driver goes and reviews it and sees how close he was, right? So even though this is in the middle of a race, they're still trying to improve, right? So they're iterating not just on the hammer and the wrench, they're iterating on their process. So after every race, he looks and says, oh, a little bit forward. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this is something that's very critical to make sure that he's doing it right. And they can't fix it during a race, but they can fix it for the next one. This is one that I thought was, and I think you were laughing at some of this also. So they're spending a lot of time doing stuff that arguably is not that important, right? I don't know if you noticed, they were just washing the hell out of that windshield. They were just scrubbing it, and then one guy gets tired, and another guy comes in, and he's scrubbing it. And really what they're doing is they're killing time, right? Because the other guy is still changing the tires, right? So he's scrubbing the windshield. This one's giving the driver a drink. This is my favorite. He's patting him on the back. How long does it take to pat somebody on the back? Is it in somewhat like 2 seconds, right? So a big part of being successful with a project is not just doing all the right stuff, it's about not doing all the stuff that you don't have to, right? So if the goal was to make this pit stop faster, if patting the guy on the back doesn't lead you to the goal, then don't do it. Do something else. All right, so let's take the things that we just learned from an F1 pit stop crew and apply it to a first robotics team, right? So again, somebody needs to decide that we've got a goal, right? And their goal is probably to win. Right? That's probably their primary goal. Probably have other goals too, right? Maybe to promote a brand, to be safe. Nobody should get hurt, right? But somebody needs to sit down and decide what they're trying to accomplish. Same thing with a first team. So maybe your team's goal is to win. And I want to point out that your team's goal might not actually be to win. Here probably it is, but not every first team is out to win. There's other things that you do this for. So it's important to sit down with the team and ask the team, why are we doing this? What do you want out of this? And then make sure, and let them decide, and then make sure that the things that you're doing are leading in that direction. Some other secondary goals that you need to make sure that you have time for. And then once you have your goals, you got to focus on value. You have to make sure that all the things that you're doing are leading towards those goals. So I'm going to introduce some Scrum or Scrumban terminology now. Themes. Themes are sort of big, fuzzy areas where you say, this is kind of something that I want to work on, right? So it might be something like our car should finish faster, we should be safer, better reliability. So these are just kind of fuzzy categories of stuff that you might do. But then you really drill into what we call epics. Epics are like big chunks of deliverables, stuff that you deliver. So for example, they might say pit stop in under 2 seconds. And then once you have an epic, you drill down into stories, which are the smallest piece of work you can deliver that has value towards the goal. Right? If it doesn't have value towards the goal, it doesn't count. It has to have value towards the goal. So that might be, you can jack up the car in 0.2 seconds, you can mount a wheel in 0.5 seconds. So these are stories. So, and the most important things about the epics and stories, they have to be measurable. Why do they have to be measurable? Because if you can't measure it, you don't know when you're done, so you don't know when to stop, right? If I just said, jack up the car faster, I could be working on this forever, because you can always make it faster, but if I only really need to do it in 0.2 seconds, then do it in 0.2 seconds and stop. And then go on and do something else that's gonna get me closer to my goal. So same thing in FLL, or in FIRST. Themes, right, you might say more mission points, robots should be faster, these are fuzzy. Then the epics are big pieces of deliverables. I want to be able to complete the well mission. And then the stories are the smallest piece that delivers value towards competing, right? So that might be the robot can drop the well in the right place. And then the next story might be it can do it in under 9 seconds. And then the next one might be it can do it 8 out of 10 times, right? But what's important again is that these things are measurable. This is really hard. It's surprisingly hard. It seems really simple, but we did it too. You sort of brainstorm and you say, all right, well, we want the robot to be smaller. Well, does smaller help us win? Why does smaller help us win? Right? You have to make sure that the thing that you're doing, it might include making the robot smaller, but that it's for a purpose. Right? Once you're done with that task, it gets you there. So we use a technique that we call the sticky note technique. And I'm gonna describe it, but maybe you guys can talk about it later. So in coming up with all the things that we need to do, rather than having a brainstorming session where everyone's screaming at the same time, what we did was we used sticky notes, and this is out of industry too, right? Everybody gets a pad of sticky notes and a pen, and everybody writes down all of their ideas. It's silent for 20 minutes, and everyone's writing down their ideas and they're putting them up on the board. And then as we start to accumulate more and more of these notes, somebody would go through and basically deduplicate, right? Take all of the notes that are basically the same and put them together. And then when everybody's done, we read through all of them so that everybody understands what they mean. And then once everybody understands all the suggestions, we vote. And the way we vote is everybody gets a certain number of stars. You might get 5 stars or 8 stars or 10 stars. It might depend on how many notes were put up there. And then you can spend those stars however you want to, right? You can write a star on each idea, or you can take all 10 of your stars and you can put them on one because you think it's super important, or it could be something in between. And then in the end, we prioritized. We put the ideas with the most stars at the top, and then second, and then third, and then the fourth. And that was our priority order. That's what we did. And the things that didn't have any stars, we didn't do because the team together decided they weren't important. And it was interesting because when we talked about what to do, we argued. And when we did this, and afterwards we said, all right, gut check, is this right? Everyone said, yeah, that's right. Everybody got heard, everybody had a voice, and in the end, the team made the decision. This is, if there's nothing that you do from this presentation but this, then you'll have gotten something worthwhile. All right, I talked about finishing. So how close to finishing this bridge are these folks? Are they pretty close? Yeah, pretty close. They're almost done, right? How useful is it? Not at all, right? So they spent a ton of time building something that is almost done but has no use, right? So this is a danger, and I'm sure that you guys have all had this, about spending a lot of time on doing something that in the end you can't use in competition, right? So try to remember, if you can't compete with it, it's not done. So we always talk about, it happens at work too. You say, oh, it's almost done. Well, I spent a lot of time on it. If you can't compete with it, it's not done, right? And so the trick to dealing with this is work on fewer things. If you're working on 10 things, then you're gonna get half of them almost done, right? You're better off working on the fewest number of things that you can work on without people being blocked by other people, without dependencies. So if you can have everybody working on the same thing, that's the best. If you can't because they're gonna be blocked, pick 2 things or pick 3 things and split them up, but no more. And then don't move on until you get them done. If you're getting close to a competition and you're not gonna finish, stop as soon as you can and focus on something that you can actually get to done. And then like we were talking about with washing the windshield, find all the things that don't matter and don't do them. So this is how we managed some of this stuff. So we have stickies everywhere, right? If you look on the right, that is our Kanban board or our Scrumban board. That's basically all the things that we want to do in priority order, all the things that were currently in progress, and then as those things that are in progress are done, we move them over to done. So we know it's done, we know what we want to do, and we know what we're working on. And if that middle column is long, then you've got a problem that you got to resolve. You got to move some of that stuff back. The other thing here's the second thing that everybody should do, demos, right? How do you know that you're getting it done? How do you know what your value is if you don't constantly demo what you're doing, right? So a demo is where you basically show all the value that you've accumulated up to that point. For us, the way we show that is through a mock competition. So we would do mock competitions every Sunday night. The whole team was there, all the coaches were there, and we would do the full-on competition. 5 runs of our robot, and then we would do judging for robot, project, and core values. And for a long time, the coaches, we were the judges. And after a couple of weeks of this, we ran out of things to ask, right? There's only so many things that we can think of. And so then we started to bring in guest judges, which was great. We had people who were in the desalination industry, which was what the Girls Project was about. We had people who were judges for science fairs. We had other FIRST robotics teams come in, so high school students came in. Over here we got the Lagerbots on the left, and we've got the Hutspots on the right. And aside from showing us that we were making progress, it also made us feel comfortable. Like, we never worried about when the competition was, because we always knew that if the competition was tomorrow, we could compete, because we had enough done to do something. So we talked about iteration with the wrench, right? Nobody designs the perfect thing and builds it and they're done, right? And so if you spend a month designing the perfect thing and then you build it, you're probably wasting time. So this is something that I came across just yesterday in the pit, the FLL pit. So this is one of our models. This is designed by Lego, right? This is one of the mission models. Chris over here is from Lego, and he's got a table where he's displaying all of the iterations of that model. So they didn't design that model and build it. They didn't take 3 months to design that. What they did was they said, oh, we need something that does X. So let's build something that does X. And they looked at it and they're like, I like it. But you know what, this is not so great. So they improved that. And they said, what do we think now? And they said, that's better. And what else can we fix? They did it again. They said, that's actually worse. And they just went through it. And there's got to be 20 or 30 of those, right? So come up with something that has value quickly, test it, and then think about how you can improve it. We talked about, doing on time, doing good. We talked about minimizing dependencies, right? If you've got lots of kids that are hanging out on couches or on phones, that means that you've got some work that's blocking everybody else. So look at it again. Maybe everybody works on that one piece that's blocking everybody so that they can split off again. And once you've done that, right, make sure that, well, collaborate, right? If you've got that dependency that's blocking everybody, swarm, right? Get everybody on that to get it out of the way, and then parallelize. Make sure that everybody's working on something that they're not dependent on anybody else. Nobody's blocked. And then finally, the team, right? Work on the team. This is the thing that we always forget. The team is the most important thing. It's not the project or the robot or the rest of it. If you build a good team that works well together, they'll be able to do anything. You could take that, we could take this team and we could put them on something completely unrelated to robotics. They could paint a storefront window. They could plant a garden, right? Because they know how to work together, right? It's that guy with the jack standing in front of the speeding car. It's something that requires work, right? And one of the ways you work on that is to constantly improve, right? Measure how you're doing and think about how you can do better. So this is an Agile or a Scrum concept called retrospectives, right? Where you periodically, and we did it, we weren't all that great with this. We did it, when we were good, we did it every week. Sometimes we would do it kind of ad hoc. But you ask the team, what did we do well in the last week or 2 weeks or whatever it is? And then what could we do better next time? Right now, what did we do wrong? Right? What can we improve on? And collect those ideas and then pick one and do better. And pick one in a measurable way. So that way, when you come back next week, you can say, did we do better? Maybe the thing that the team says is, people were late to practice all the time. You say, okay, that's the thing we're going to work on. And we're going to measure that. We're going to see, does everybody come on time? How late are they? And then we're going to take a look and we'll see if we did any better, right? It could be these little things like, where the tire is on the measurement. The other thing I want to say about this is not an opportunity for the coaches to tell the kids where they screwed up. Everybody, myself included, does better with constructive criticism when it comes from me or from peers than if it comes from an authority figure. So the kids know what they can do better. They don't need us to tell them. And if they decide to do something better, they'll do it better. Right? If you tell them that they need to do it better, maybe not. Okay, so to sum it up, importance of goals. Don't assume that you know what the team's goals are. Talk about it. Then once you know what the goals are, break those goals down into deliverables. Things that will help you achieve those goals. And make sure that they have value and that they're measurable. Then as you start to work on them, get everything all the way to done. Right? Don't get it halfway and then start working on something else. It doesn't count if it's half done or even 95% done. The demos were huge. I really recommend that on a regular basis, right? And if you can have outside people come in, it helps keep up the pressure, which is really good. Iterate, right? Do things in little chunks, then make them better, make them better, make them better. So if you're spending weeks planning, then take a step back and see if there's something of value that you can deliver quicker. Work on the process. How the team works together is the most important thing, and then the team is the most important thing, right? Focus on the team. They do all the work. We're just there to guide. And given that, I would like to invite the Day Dragons up, and they can share some of their thoughts and experiences with you. So here, let me give you, that's on, live mic. And that's on, so just pass them back and forth as you need to. Have a seat. So thank you guys for coming. This is not an easy day for these guys. They just came out of judging, and then they were in the pits trying to fix robot issues. And they're taking a quick break here before they slam a piece of pizza and go and do the practice competitions in preparation for the real competitions tomorrow. So this is a busy day. So thank you guys for doing this. The format for this is, it's a panel which I described to the girls as like a talk show. So they said like Ellen, right? So this is basically, this is like Ellen, except I'm not dancing, okay? All right, so why don't we start by you guys introducing yourselves. Why don't we do name and age?
I'm Annika, and I'm 12 years old.
I'm Hannah, and I'm 13 years old.
I'm Allison, and I'm 12.
I'm Kavya, and I'm 12.
I'm Miranda, and I'm 10.
I'm Isha, and I'm 11.
All right, nice to meet you guys. So I noticed Miranda's the youngest, right? And I also happen to know that this is Miranda's first year. The team has been together for 3, but this is Miranda's first year. Guys, how did you guys welcome Miranda into the team? How did that work? You had an established team and you had a new, younger member joining.
Well, we knew Miranda was kind of nervous about joining the team and working on so many aspects of FLL, and we kind of wanted her. We were so excited to like teach her everything we knew, but obviously it doesn't work that way. We have to sort of like get her into the, way that we work, and so I guess you could say we kind of passed off roles in a way of like teaching each other about how robotics work, how actually FLL works, and what do you do, what do you need to do to get things done in time for the competition day. And we taught her, we started off with the basics, how robots work, how Lego Mindstorm robots work. And then once we got her to know more about the robot, we went on to project and core values, and how you want to always remember that core values always, they're there whenever you're doing FLL, and that you want to remember that your decisions and actions, you should think about core values while doing so.
So was there something in particular that she took to? Something in particular that she was kind of natural?
Well, I think she was kind of a natural at hardware. She really helped with all the attachments and helped building them. She also helped a lot with the robot, and she gave us creative new design ideas.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I thought was really neat. You did everything that, Kavya, that you described, but on top of it, you kind of found the sweet spot for her, and you made room for her to be an expert there. And then given that spot, now she's got a place to grow. So I thought that was a really cool way that you guys handled that. Okay, so Hannah, you're the oldest, right? So you're in charge? No? Didn't she give her the... So you're not in charge? Who's in charge? Who's the boss?
Pretty much the whole team's in charge. We make the decisions together, and no one person's really the leader of the team.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you work that to make the decisions together?
We kind of just go through kind of pros and cons and what's better for what we're trying to do, I guess, and then we just decide.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I found that you guys are really good at. I've been really impressed. Actually, I wanted to show something that kind of illustrates this. So early on, we asked the girls to describe their team, to draw a picture of their team. And I've been in the industry so long that I was expecting something like this, right? So this is actually the pre-Agile view. Now the enlightened view is, right, so this is, you guys can't see it, but it's that pyramid where it's, the boss is on top and then the peons are on the bottom, right? With Agile, that gets flipped upside down. The people who do the actual work, these guys, right, they're in charge. And the coaches, we're just there for support, right? So it was I had this in mind. That's what they came up with, which I think is way better. That is so much better than what we use in industry. So Miranda drew the picture. Do you want to describe what's going on here?
So I use Google Drawings for this. I took a picture of a dragon from our favorite book series, Wings of Fire, and I pointed arrows to each part that represents part of the team. For example, the head would be us because we direct the team in the system. And the wings would be the coaches because they help us fly farther and faster. And there are a lot of other things like the charity, the parents, the sponsors, and I also added in all of our brain power is the venom or fire because it helps us kick butt.
It does, it's true. So, it's what I think is really cool about this is it really illustrates the idea that, I don't have my microphone. It really illustrates the idea that there isn't a hierarchy, right? This is a team where everybody, like in the F1 pit stop, right? Everybody knows their job and everybody does their job, and together the whole team just works. My notes are back here. Okay, so the so tell me about the demos. What do you guys think about the demos?
Sometimes it was really suspenseful because the coaches would call the guest judges, and we weren't really sure who they were until it happened. The last time was really emotional and touching because the coaches invited everyone from the family, including grandparents and neighbors, and we had an entire room of guest judges, and we really wanted to do our best for them. And but sometimes we don't know who they are, and the suspense kind of mounts until they ring the doorbell. We kind of go all crazy, and then we open the door and we present.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a sadistic pleasure in that, in making you guys sweat. Who was your favorite guest judge?
I really like the Liger bots because they really taught us a lot since a lot of them who came had already done FLL, and they gave us some great suggestions on like to make eye contact and what kind of questions the judges might ask.
Great. Anybody else have a different favorite?
Well, since they've done this competition already, they know what kind of questions they're going to ask and what they look for while they're judging you, I guess. And it was great to know like these little things that we should change to make our team better.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got one of the coaches of the Lagerbots right here. So that was a couple of them, I think. Yeah. Super. I'm going to show you guys a picture, and I want you to tell me what's going on here. What is that?
We made a copy of the new robot so we could do double the work. So half of the team works on part of the missions and half of the team works on the other part because they're the exact same robot.
Yeah, we decided that half of us could work on the coding on one robot, and the other half could work on kind of the hardware. So we could split the work evenly. So everybody would be doing something.
Yeah, we found that with one robot, there would be like a couple people like over the robot and with the computer programming and running the robot, and then there would just be a few kids on the side just like lounging around, not really doing anything. And so we figured that there's so much stuff to do and not a lot of time to do it, and if we have other people who need a job, that with two robots we were able to achieve more.
Yeah. So it goes back to the paralyzing work, right?
Yeah.
Also, was this the one that you, the robot that you used in the state competition?
No, we actually completely tore down our robot, and we only used the same brick. Since our robot was really big and it couldn't fit around to do some of the missions in the back of the board, because it couldn't really fit between two missions, we decided to tear it down to make it a lot sturdier and a lot smaller. And also we changed the wheels. The wheels used to be very like fat and small, but now they're really tall. And
That was a huge risk, right? To tear your robot apart right before the world competition. How did you guys as a team decide that it was safe to take that risk?
I think we realized that with our old robot, we had reached the limit. The tiny wheels couldn't go any faster, and we wanted to do some missions like the slingshot and the well and all of those over there, but our giant robot could not fit there. And we realized that bigger doesn't necessarily mean better, because during state we were a little intimidated sometimes by like the giant robots, but we actually did better than them. So, and as a team, I think we knew that there wasn't, I think we knew that we were going to make another robot happen, because at the very beginning, we had the same time between August and November, which is when the challenge comes out in the qualifier, as we did from December to now. And if we could make that robot encode all the missions in that time for qualifiers, we could do it again.
Cool. And how did it feel, Allison? How did it feel ripping apart the old robot?
It felt terrible. It felt like ripping out your own child's like organs.
Yeah. So they're presenting a brave face, but this was a painful moment when they were deciding that they were going to do it. And they started to build the robot, and there was a moment when they said, all right, if we're going to continue, we have to take parts from the old one. And it was not easy. So there was a lot of discussion about what do we need to do to prove to ourselves that this is going to work before we're going to do this. So again, it was a great job. All right, I've got one more picture for you, and then I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the crowd. What's going on here?
Well,
So and let me just point out, if you can't tell, this is the competition floor, right? This is a group hug on the crazy FLL competition floor. Oh, you can't see in this picture. There's even a clock, a time clock behind them that says 5 seconds left. So what's going on here?
well, some of us, so that run didn't exactly work out the way we wanted it to. We pretty much didn't get any missions done, and some of us were really upset, and some of us were trying to make them feel better and say that it's okay, we have more chances.
And spontaneously, we got into a group hug because we know that no matter what, we're stronger together.
So was there any discussion about whose fault it was?
No.
Yeah, that was the thing that struck me, was that it didn't even seem to occur to you guys that you guys are such a tight team that there was just never any question that you guys were in it together. So this is my favorite moment from the entire season, by far. All right, so that's all my questions for you guys. Do we have any questions from the crowd, for me, or for the girls? I saw this hand go up first. So let me see if I can repeat the question. So, yeah, that's okay. So you've got different teams that have different functions, right? So marketing, for example, versus build. And each of these teams has a lead? Okay. And so you're wondering, do you need that person who's in charge of that team, or can you get rid of that and just have the team in charge of themselves? What does the person who's in charge of the team do? Right. Yeah. So on any team, there's going to be people who are more experienced and others that are less experienced. So it's always the job of the people who have more experience to mentor, right? And to help the team grow and to help the team be tight. As far as delegation, you don't really need it if everybody has agreed on the work to be done, right? So if the team sits down and says, all right, we're doing marketing, so here are all the things that we need to accomplish, right? Here are the themes, here are our goals, here are the pieces of deliverables that have value, and we're all going to agree on what's the most important thing. Now you have a list, right? We call it a backlog, and you can put it on your Kanban board. right? So this is your prioritized list.
And
then,
I also think that the sticky note strategy is a really good way to get everybody's idea up there.
yeah, exactly. If you guys are, it's worth a try. Yeah. And then, so once everybody's bought in on the priorities, then nothing really has to be delegated. If you have time, you take the most important thing, right? So what that does is that frees you up from that responsibility. It also frees you up from having to be the heavy, right? And people like to feel like they're choosing to do work as opposed to it being imposed on them. So it has that advantage too. I think it'd be worth a try. Yeah. I'll get you next. Okay.
So, at the beginning of the season, we all had our interests and things that we were sure that we wanted to do, and some people were more interested in robot than project, and some people were more interested in project than robot. And so, at the beginning of the season, we would split off. We would split the team in half, have one group go do the project, one group go do the robot, and then throughout the season, we'd always be switching up the teams so that if one person wanted to do robot again, they could do robot again, but then a person from project could have a chance to do robot too, so that the teams were mixed up so that we got a chance to work with different people, but also have a chance to work at a different aspect of FLL.
Yeah.
For this also, we use the sticky note strategy for like the UFO, which is our project, and that also helped everyone have their ideas for the other group too. Like while they're working on the robot, they could still be giving ideas for the project.
Yeah. And then the coach's answer to that is we never told them what to do. We never split up the teams. We talked about as a team all the stuff that needed to get done, and then we measured when things were falling behind, like if the project wasn't getting attention or if the robot wasn't getting attention, and we pointed that out. And again, we're all working off the same goals, and we're all working off that prioritized backlog, and the girls just figured it out. Yeah. So let me throw that to the girls at first, and then there's going to be some stuff that they don't know about that I'll fill in afterwards. So just because yeah. So what kinds of, so the sticky note exercise is something that you guys all did physically in the same room. Where did you use online tools?
Well, we use a thing called Slack. It's kind of like texting for the younger kids who didn't have phones. That's a way to all communicate, and we were all on Slack, and we could all use that to share our ideas. And
We also used Google Docs a lot. Like we had this own folder for internationals, FLL, and we put like all of our documents, like emails we're gonna send, and like different things we want to put up to send to people, which made it easier for all of us to see and edit different documents.
Is that it? Or that's it, right?
Yeah, I think it's good to have a balance of both. Sometimes having sticky notes is nice to have there as a reminder, even if you're working on something else and you glance up and you see your goals. It gives you a good feeling because you have a sense of purpose. However, using Slack, for example, like if we're on the bus or something and we have something that we need to get done, but someone's already at school, for example, we can use Slack to notify the coaches and everyone else what we plan on doing. It's also really helpful when people aren't there. If someone's sick or has plans, they can easily catch up just by looking at what we posted on Slack.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so I'll, I yeah, I've got an opinion, but I can see John shaking his head, so I want to hear what he says, and then I'll weigh in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So nice, I like that. So I actually looked at a tool. This is what they don't know. It's not a big secret, but I looked at a tool for doing this online, and I looked at it. I can't even remember what it's called. I looked at it because it had a pretty good Slack integration. Right? So if you had something you wanted to add it, you could just add it in Slack, or if you wanted to list it, you could list it in Slack. So I set that up and I put in a bunch of tasks, and what I realized was that they didn't need it. Like if they needed it, I would have used it, but the reality is teams always work best when they're together. So when the team is together, it's better to have them working face to face. And so we only brought in these online tools to help with the cases where they're not together. So Slack was for primarily was for organizing when they were going to get together and then sharing information afterwards about what happened. Right? So that was Slack. And then Google Docs was, it was basically homework, right? It was, there were things that we talked about together that needed to be written, you know, documents that needed to be written or pictures that needed to be drawn, and everyone would go home and collaborate on it at home as they had time. But anything that they can do in person is better. We had a coach that was, and his wife, who was willing to have their sticky notes all over their house for 9 months straight. That's how we managed it. In the back. So one for every piece of work that needs to be done. We didn't do tasks. So you can break stories into tasks, and tasks might not have deliverable value. We never bothered going down to that level, but everything that is a deliverable, that's everything that's competable, right? Every small thing that adds to a competition got its own sticky notes, and then we put them under headings, right? So that just as a for goals, right? So we had one board that was for fundraising, and we had one that was for robot, and one that was for project and things like that. But everything that we were actually delivering had a sticky note. I've seen your. Oh, that's a good question. We're open to suggestions because we have. Do you? Oh, let me.
Well, it's really hard not to let your personal life interfere with FLL. For example, if you don't really like someone, but they want to join the team, it's important that you look at what they have to offer the team versus like if they're annoying or not. But it's also important that if you're going to break into a spontaneous group hug or there are always going to be disappointments, it's important that that person can handle them. And I don't know, sometimes FLL brings people together. In fact, it did for us.
Someone you don't really like, then it's also important that you also, yes, see what they have to offer, but during like core values judging, the judges might be able to tell that you don't really enjoy each other's company, and that might affect your score.
Yeah, I sense you guys are talking about me. Is that no?
No,
No,
never.
okay. How? It's a close one. I'm interested to talk to you guys more about this afterwards. We have been talking about taking on new team members because we've only got one more season left with the 7th graders. So it is something that we've been thinking about. So yeah, I don't really have an answer. I would say that yeah, you have to have an open mind. We're talking about it. We're trying to have an open mind, but the team dynamic is also critical, right? It's, you go back to it. If you're not willing to stand in front of the car at 50 miles an hour, it's just not going to work, right? So you got to find that right balance.
Yeah, you don't want to let biased judgment get in the way of what really matters. So.
Yeah. John, you had your hand up earlier, right? Wow. That's great. Thank you. All right, we're probably going to get kicked out pretty soon, so let's do just one more question. I've seen this in the... Thanks. So I think the question is, how did they like the prioritization process? We didn't really talk about, we didn't really differentiate between urgent and important. Yeah, it was just stars. Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, we did. But, but yeah, we didn't differentiate. Okay. All right, so we'll hang out for a few more minutes if you guys want to come up, and thanks for coming. This was a fun discussion.